What up, Pittsburgh Steel fans? Matty P, Marky D here. We're back with you after a little bit of hiatus for different reasons. But Marky D, how are you doing? Before we crack into our show previewing the Steelers versus Jacksonville Jaguars, we will talk injury report, we will talk depth chart, we will talk some crazy rumors about trade deadline this week. But yeah, Marky D, how you doing?
Feeling pretty good. It's kind of cold in Australia though, so I'm wearing my tracky dacks.
What is it, like 52 right now, I think, or something?
Yeah, it's something like that. It's like cold enough to wear tracky dacks, so I'm doing that. But I feel like in the next 3 or 4 days it'd be really hot again, so it's like kind of weird. But in like Steeler world, man, I feel pretty good. Like the Steelers are 4-2. They did exactly what I want them to do. Where I thought they'll get Steelers fans back on track. They beat the Ravens. They beat the Rams. That's 1-2. Now we have a pretty big game against the Jags, and if they win this one, I don't care how they win. This team will be a playoff team if they're 5-2. If they can beat the Jags 5-2, they're setting themselves up to get back Cameron Hayward, and then you have 10 games to go. And like you said, just got to win 10 games this year.
That's it. And if they go 5-2, then they literally only have to win 5 or 6 out of 10. That's it. Yeah. But it's more the statement. Even if you hate the way the Steelers playing, and I don't think there's a Steeler fan out there that really sits there and goes, I love this. This is the perfect football. I would want to watch this every day. No, like it is awful to watch. It just is. But the Jags are 5-2 right now. You go out and beat a 5-2 team that is a very good team that made the divisional round of the playoffs last year. Mm-hmm. We have a very good quarterback, have a pretty good defense, have a very good ability to score points on offense. Containing Kirk, Etienne, Zay Jones. They've got another wide receiver as well. That's a big deal. And trust me, I know, because I've got 2 of those guys on fantasy right now, and they get me 60 points a week in Kirk and Etienne.
Like, I know what you got Etienne Avenue. Yeah.
Yeah. So right. For the Steelers to go up against that, if the Steelers can win this game, regardless of what happens in the game, I agree with you. I think it's a massive deal. And 5 or 6 from 10, the team had to win. What didn't they have to win 7 from 9 to close out the season to have to have a winning record last year? It's a lot harder to go 7 out of 9 than it is to go 5 or 6 out of 10.
I got a question for you. Do you think this team is it a better team, or does it feel better with this team being 4-2 than we had that like 9-0 stretch? When Big Ben and we had the 11-0?
The 11-0. Yes, because I remember Shannon White talking about this a lot, and I agreed with him at the time. The Steelers should have been like 7-2 and like 8-3 or 9-2. Like they should never have been 11-0, right? And then the wheels fell off the wagon, right?
Completely,
This team, as much as I think that team that went 11-0 had a real rhythm to it and was consistent and familiar with each other. Remember, like I said during that season, the problem with the team, and I said it afterwards, the problem is the team doesn't know how to go through adversity and win. And last year they did that. And this year we've seen it because they've won 4 games, 3 of which they probably shouldn't have won. Let's be frank, right? Like if you take even the missed kicks last week, it's a draw. Now they did win the game. I'm not going to say they won the game, they're fair and square. You go out there on the field. What happens when the whistle blows is what happens when the whistle blows. But ultimately, this team is finding a way to win. Like there's that book about Dan Rooney, and it's called A Different Way to Win. Well, the Steelers are finding a different way to win to what every other team's finding this season, right? But it is, as you said, like to answer your question, I do feel like it is a better team as a team because the team knows how to win as a collective, right? Whether it's Mars Killebrew blocking the odd punt, whether it's Holcomb doing a stuffing tackle in the background, whether it's Joey Porter doing a really good defensive stop or interception against an Odell Beckham Jr., whether it's a TJ Watt doing a strip sack, or even Nick Herbig getting the key sack of that game when he got it. If you go back and you look at that drive where he got that sack, if he doesn't get that, they got a big problem there. Or it's Boz just nailing kicks and being a guaranteed, look at what happened last week. A lot of teams have a kicker that will miss a field goal very occasional extra point every couple of games. Boz has been really good, which means that this team can actually try and rush the passer. This team doesn't have to go throw Hail Marys and stuff like that. They can just do all they've got to do is what Tomlin says, the routine thing.
Routine plays routinely.
whatever it is.
No, I agree with you. I think in the 11-0, I think it was kind of a year with the old 2020. That was the COVID year and stuff. But like this team does seem like more of a team win. And yes, we should have won some of those games, but in the reality too, they're winning them. The Browns game, they got the 2 turnovers. The Ravens game, they got a turnover here and there. JBJ. Raiders game was played well, and they've done things as well where they've normally lost games like versus the Rams, and they've also if they would have beaten Texans, like people are saying we should have beat them, they'd be 6-1 right now. Sorry, 5-1.
Can I ask you a question though?
Hmm.
It's kind of cottoned on to me this week. When we won when the Steelers won the Super Bowl in 2005, like 2004, the season, right? When we were on the bowl end, Ben's second year. The team didn't win 60% of their games. The team scraped into the playoffs and went all the way on the road and won. We've got a better record than that right now.
Yeah, and Big Ben wasn't playing that
no
great, right? He's playing.
No, he wasn't.
Rookie, not at all. Second year ball, yeah.
So, and that's what I did the show about this week with Bradshaw, and I went into the stats about when I looked at Bradshaw's comments and I went into the stats of Big Ben. Kenny Pickett's not crazy far away from a lot of the stats that Big Ben had through 2 seasons. In fact, if Kenny throws for 200 yards for the rest of the season, every game, he will surpass what Big Ben had in yardage. If he throws, for 250 yards or more.
You know what? Looking back at that, because I did see the schedule now in 2005, that's pretty crazy. They had to win four of the last 4 games. Bears, Vikings, Browns, Detroit. They won 4 in a row. Then they got 11-5. Then they were the wild card. Then they beat Cincy, Colts, Denver, and then Seattle. So they won 8 games to win Super Bowl right near the end. Yeah. And the Steelers are now setting themselves up to they can lose a few here and there. But if they beat the Jags, go 5-2, they're in this.
But if they beat the Jags this week, barring crazy injuries, I'm not going to touch wood again and dislodge my mic. No. But barring I'll knock the other way. Anyway, barring any injuries, this team could well be 7-2, which was the best case scenario. When we talked about the way they were going to come out of the bye, the danger game before the 3 home games was the Rams because it was away after the bye, and then the next one was Jacksonville. So you win Jacksonville, there is no reason why this team should not be 7-2.
And that going back that far too is kind of built on defense too, and also I think more I realize the fact that TJ Watt's playing, we have a chance to win every game. He's amazing. Like, did you see that pick last week? Yeah. It was unbelievable. I've watched that pick now like 28 times. And every time I watch it, I'm just like, it's such a good pick. He left his man, came back over, had no idea he was there, grabbed it almost to the house.
I mean, Shannon White talked about it on Steel Curtain Network show this week with your mate Daniel J. And he is right. TJ doesn't look fully healthy though. And so they have to be very careful with him over the next few weeks because they need to manage the snaps and let him recharge.
That's why we have Herbig played well, Highsmith played well, and you had Marcus Golden play good reps too.
Exactly. That's what I mean. That's what I'm loving about it. That's what I love about Herbig's snack, man.
And one of the best things I saw in that play too, I saw JBJ celebrate like with his hands up, and the team's getting around each other. Long as the offense can be like play like 17
to
25
contribute somehow.
Yeah, but 17-25, like in 3 rushing touchdowns, is a pretty big win for us versus the Rams. Like it's not like super crazy awesome, but at the same time, the Steelers have won games. Like we did a show the other day, 11-4 in the last 15 games. Like we're not that bad. We're just certain parts they're really bad. Like,
but it goes back to what like you always say, and you're right. That we can have a view about the team, but ultimately the opposition has a say in what happens on the day, right?
Yeah.
But the same thing when teams play us, right? You can be like the Rams and come in and score a heap ton of points. You can be like Cleveland and the Ravens and score a heap ton of points. But you've got to play the Steelers. Yep. I don't think we think about that enough, right?
Well, you're doing like reverse psychology of what I said.
Yeah. But it's true, right? Like, and don't get me wrong, I am furious with the run defense from last week. The fact that Henderson can come off the freaking couch and gash the Steelers for like that is embarrassing, right? But, and I'll do my big but. You go back to the Super Bowl last year. How did the Super Bowl play out? It was 2 teams who had a bend but don't break defense. And in many ways, the Steelers have a bend but don't break defense.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it relies on massive splash plays from key playmakers. Don't get me wrong. But we're holding teams to under 20 points regularly. That tells you we have a bend but don't break defense.
Yeah.
So we know the offense isn't great. It can't get that much worse. That we were without DJ the first 4 games of the season. He showed the difference of when he's back. We're without Pat right now. Pickens is coming along. Warren and Najee are working out how to be 1 and 2 punch, like a 1-2 punch. Hayward's starting to get in the mix, Connor Hayward, which I'm loving. I said loving. I think he had a really. I think it's gone underrated this week about what he did on the field. And as
played 58 snaps.
Yeah, 100%. As an option for Kenny Pickett. But it's also only like it's only been 7 games for the Steelers. Like 8th game is not even 50% in. So what happens if the offense gets it right down the stretch?
Well, I think Steeler Nation wanted this kind of football from week 1. Do you know what I mean? And now we've got it in a week.
But you can't.
Week
8. But I was thinking about it this week. Don't get me wrong. I wanted better than this football from week 1. Don't get me wrong. But we could be playing this type of football and be what are we? We're 4-2. We could be 3-3. We could be 2-4. You know. Now, one argument would be if we'd been playing this football, we might be 6-0. We might be 5-1. But that's very difficult when you think about the first 4 teams we played. Really, on the away games and the divisional games and against the best team in the NFL right now in the San Francisco 49ers when they turn up to play. So, yeah, I mean, for me, I just think the opportunity is there. And I think, if you're not convinced, it's all right not to be convinced, but you got to stay on the train because, man, the train's gathering pace. Like, I feel like, I use the train analogy. Well, we've just gone past the coal depot and we've loaded some coal on it and we're going down. We're chugging along.
Well, I reckon that Rams win was one of the funnest games I think I've seen in a long time. It reminded me of versus Steelers versus Raiders, that kind of feeling, I think, because it was like, I think we had some big plays near the end, or some big plays, and we're always in it. And then we won by the drive that I called it. I called it live on air. I said the Steelers get a statement drive, they go 80 yards, and they score a TD, they win 24-17. They did exactly that.
So before we do the injury report, I had a question for you because I don't obviously know how I feel about it. I'm kind of getting over this. Kenny Pickett's amazing in the 4th quarter. Why can't he be amazing in every quarter? I'm kind of getting over this because Kenny Pickett's only played 1 season of games. Like, technically, he's only played what, like, a full rookie has played. So, like, when you've played less than 20 games, can we pare back the whole, this is what you are and this is what you're not?
Yeah. I'll bring it back to, I'd rather have that than have nothing. Than have Kenny Pickett do nothing, right? And I'd also rather have, when we go back to as well, I've really got to start seeing the whole field because I keep saying this, a football game plays out. They took care of Aaron Donald. You never saw him in the backfield, right? Everyone wanted, and I know people want Jones to play, but Dan Moore stood up. I know people wanted, at some point 3 weeks ago, everyone wanted Ciamalo traded again and said, bring back Dotson, right? And Ciamalo stepped up and played great football. So they're getting
even
better.
Cole, who I still think they should trade. He had a good game.
So, and the thing
he played better as well.
I think sometimes fans just want to see quarter 1, 2, 3, and 4 win 7, 7, 8, get up by 30 points and win. And it'd be fantastic to do that. But at least in this way they're playing football.
But you and I both know Mike Tomlin. If they did that, then they wouldn't throw the ball anymore and they'd run the ball. The other team would score a bunch of points and they'd win 30-27.
Yeah, they'll come back. But they don't want to I don't know. When I'm watching the game, I thought last week they had a lot of control. Like, I thought they were getting in most. Like, the play calling was pretty good from first, second, third quarter. Not too many bad play calling. I saw Najee had one big hole, but he went to the right. And the next minute they picked it up. And
that was a bad play. That was a bad
right? Play. And that's going to happen. But this idea that, like,
Kenny needs to just go straight. But
yeah, but they figure it out, right? But then saying Kenny can't play in the first 3 quarters makes no sense. I heard there was a bit of maybe Tim Tebow reference then. I was like, that's completely different. They're completely different quarterbacks. Right?
You know what I loved? My play of the game before we get into the injury report was the stepping up into the pocket as the line was narrowing around him and he made that freaking throw. I love that. That told me everything I needed to know coming out of the bye.
The one to DJ was the one to DJ where he went like 30 yards. Yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah. Also, Warren stepped up too and took care of the blocks
because he climbed the pocket. And if you actually look at the play again, as he climbed the pocket, because there was quite a gap, like the offensive line had like parted like the Red Sea. So yeah, but the linebackers had seen they dropped back into coverage. So as it's parted, as he stepped up into the pocket, but as he stepped up into the pocket, it actually narrowed toward him. So like the pressure was coming on, and the lines were kind of caving back in on him, and he still stepped up and made that throw, and I freaking loved it.
At the end of the day, too, I think like you can win and correct, but like the players don't just focus on one quarter. They focus on just, winning the game. So if they're down by 20 points and they win the game 24-20, sweet, it's a win. Just keep working at it, right? But I know what fans want. They want the first quarter, the second quarter to be the best. Now, the last few years, it hasn't been like that. It's been slow, but at least they're getting together. And if they can beat the Jags, I've got the Jags like 19-16 still or something like that, 19-17, Boswell game. If they can win the game that way and we go 5-2, let's move on to the next one. Because at some point, there will be a game where they maybe do put on 30 points and they have a good defense. But it's just not happening right now. But I'm okay to win that way at the moment.
I don't know. I reckon they could turn up this week. But let's go to the injury report. Patrick Peterson. Now, obviously, when this show comes out for everyone, you will have seen the injury report for Friday because Mark and I are recording this early. But Patrick Peterson, limited Wednesday, not listed Thursday. Anthony McFarland, full practice both days. That's actually really good. I think they've got some schematics with him in there, particularly with Canada being his old offensive coordinator from Maryland. Levi Wallace did not practice Wednesday, limited practice on Thursday. No matter what people think about Levi Wallace, that he's important as a part of the top 3 cornerbacks on the roster. Thankfully, Cole Holcomb was full practice Wednesday and Thursday, despite the ankle injury. Man, I was worried when he went down last week. Nate Herbig did not practice Wednesday, full practice on Thursday. Did not practice Wednesday, full practice Thursday. He should be good to go based on that. Isaac Siamalu was rested on Wednesday, and then he wasn't listed Thursday. You'd think he'd be good to go, but we'll know by the time the show comes out. Deontay wasn't listed Wednesday, which is often the vet day, and I would think that with a hamstring and loading, that would be the same for him. He didn't practice Thursday. Again, I don't deeply think that's an issue. Cam Hayward was not listed on Wednesday, was limited on Thursday. As we record this, I haven't heard anything as to him actually playing. I still think he's a week or two away to me.
I think he won't play this week, I don't think. Same with McFarland's the one we got to look out for when they're going to drop someone finally for him because Goodwin Iwabuke has been playing kickoff return, wearing number 48, by the way, which looks really weird back there, but he's been doing kickoff return. And I still think the Steelers are going to use 1-2 punch with Najee and Warren and no one else. It's been working. It's been working. So until McFarland comes back in and gets reps.
And then Ogunjobi was probably vet day.
He's always
Wednesday, not listed. Thursday, did not practice. Again, I'm not worried about that. I think we'd know something there. He does have a shoulder complaint, but he's had that for a little while. Joe Porter, calf, was not listed on Wednesday, limited on Thursday. If he was limited on Thursday, it'd be different if he didn't practice, but he was limited. I think he'd be good to go. And then on the Jacksonville side of things, they had a lot of players limited on Wednesday, but they did not list anyone. Game status is unspecified for all the players I'm about to mention, which is Tyson Campbell, their top corner, Andre Cisco, their free safety, Devon Hamilton, their DT, Zay Jones, the wide receiver, Gregory Jr., their cornerback, Trevor Lawrence, their quarterback, Walker Little, their offensive tackle, and Brandon Scherf, who people would be pretty familiar with from the Commanders. All those players were limited, except for Hamilton, who was full practice on Wednesday. Gregory Jr. was a full practice. He's a backup CB. Zay Jones didn't practice Wednesday or Thursday. And then most of these players, as I said, were limited on Thursday again. But I think Campbell, Cisco, and Lawrence and Scherf definitely will all be in there to play. Zay Jones is the one that really, at the moment, was probably out. He didn't practice Wednesday, Thursday, but that decision has not been made as we record this show.
I like it. I'm not too worried, to be honest, with the names in there. I think most of them will play, to be honest.
Yeah, I think so. So last week, why you weren't here, Marky D, I looked at the depth chart for the other team in terms of how they line up. Now, ESPN doesn't get everything right, but I thought it was pretty cool because it actually was an interesting way for us to talk about the Steelers versus the opposition. So you look at this team, and we talked a little bit about it in the opening. Trevor Lawrence, Travis Etienne. That's right. Ridley was the name that I couldn't think of. Ridley, Kirk, Zay Jones, Evan Ingram. They've got a good team that can receive the football. How do you feel the Steelers defense? And Jamal Agnew's a bit of a gadget guy.
I got
As
something for
Tomlin
you.
said, how do you feel the Steelers defense matches up against the offense for the Jags?
Let's put it this way, right? The Jags had a good team. When they beat us in the playoffs a few years ago, they're that like one kind of that freak kind of good team. What's going to happen? Who's going to be more physical? That's my kind of question. So what I mean by that is like, who's going to be more physical? Because back in the day, they had Jalen Ramsey. They had that Fournette, right? Was a runner. I don't know who their quarterback was, Blake Bortles, whoever, right? But I feel like coming to Pittsburgh, if they're not going to show up to be physical, then I think we have a chance on defense. Now, I'm not calling these guys out at all. I'm just saying, like, can this team be physical and match up with the linebackers, the linebacking play, the Keanu Bennons of the world, the physical nature of JPJ, stuff like that. You know what I mean? Minka Fitzpatrick. You know what I'm trying to say? Like, can these blokes, Ridley, Kirk, and Ingram and their line, can they match up with us in the terms of physicality? This year, physicality-wise, it's been awesome to see. I know there's been missed tackles here and there. I get that. But, like, the defensive-wise, I've seen Benton. I've seen JBJ play them really tough. So I want to see something like that happen.
Yeah, and I think that's what I thought the Steelers would have a tougher time. Like, I wasn't surprised to only see 2 sacks because the Rams' offensive line isn't bad. This line is interesting. Like, Fortner's a good center. Scherf's a good right guard. Anton Harrison is their top draft pick, who PFF had him rated as the top tackle taken in the first round. He was the best tackle through 4 weeks of the season. Cam Robinson's obviously pretty well known. Walker Little is someone that we just talked about in the injury report. He's probably the weak link in that offensive line. But you talk about physicality. Like, Etienne is a lot more physical than people give him credit for. People think he's more of like a Kamara receiving running back. But they got Tank Bigsby behind him. Now, Tank Bigsby, his name is Tank. He runs like a tank. He's a solid block, right? Like,
Where's he from? Is he a rookie?
Yeah, he's a rookie. He's out of Auburn off the top of my head. I might be wrong there. But he is a brick. He's like 5'9" and like 212, but like just built like a brick. Maybe he's even up to 220 now. And they've got Dearness Johnson in there, who was at the Browns
last year. He's a killer. I was going to say him. He's the one we got to look out for too.
So they've they don't just have a 1-2 punch. They've got a triple punch or a triple kick in the guts at running back. So when you talk about physicality, we need E-Rob, Quan, and Holcomb ready to have a big game. And that's what I love about Holcomb's play, because I think Holcomb's stepping up. So with that physicality will be interesting. But we will need Porter in there and Fitzpatrick in there, really smashing them. And I think we're going to see a real battle between Ridley on the outside with Porter and Peterson at times. And then you're going to see, I know people say Peterson's been playing interior, but I think you will see Minka and Christian Kirk have a whale of a time out there in the secondary. I can see that being the case.
You know, Minka's leading out tackling too with like 50 tackles as well. He's been
playing 11 last week.
Yeah, the way he's playing is like just smash mouth football when you're allowed to be. You know.
So moving on to we'll flip it and we'll talk about the Jags defense versus the Steelers offense. So Adam Gotsis is there. He's an Aussie, not a punter or a kicker.
No, a real footballer.
They're playing a 3-4 defense as well, which is interesting. Obviously, we know the benefits of that as Steelers. They've got very good interior linebackers in Olakun and Devin Lloyd and Chad Mooma, who I really like.
Olakun's good, isn't he? He's got like 80 tackles. He's insane, that bloke.
Devin Lloyd's pretty good. Then obviously Trayvon Walker and Josh Allen are the two, super notable names. Tyson Campbell's in there. He's a pretty hard defensive end, but he's, sorry, what am I saying? Calais Campbell. No, he's not there anymore. But Tyson Campbell's a very good cornerback. Rayshon Jenkins is a very underrated strong safety for them. And then Cisco's really well known. So they've got a bunch of guys that can do things. And they've got guys like Kavion Chase on there as a backup. This is not the easiest defense to go against. So I guess, where do you see the benefit in terms of Steelers offense versus this defense from the Jags?
Offense, the benefit with their offense.
Yeah,
Boy,
benefit from the offense. Like where are the in terms of like where do the Steelers have a favorable matchup? Because this is a pretty comprehensive defense.
Got to be Pickens. I think you got to go to Pickens one-on-one because I think DJ last week gave him time to get open in certain routes, and then you saw the back shoulder pass with Pickens, and also Pickens has been saying some things out in the media. He did say they called a hope defense because the Jaguars said we can take care of 14 or something similar like that. Then Pickens came back and said, "Oh, they're a hope defense," as mean they hope that the D line gets to them before the play's over. So there's going to be a good matchup to see Pickens go out there, and if they target him early and get him involved in the game, I think this big game will feed kind of like his ego or just feed him up that day.
His aura.
Just get him going. I don't want him doing silly mistakes like last week, but Mike Tomlin talked to them both. They should be hopefully fine. But if you feed Pickens to a certain point and get him on fire, then it's going to be very hard to stop.
The thing that I hate is this is the game where you really do well with Pat Freiermuth.
True.
Pat Freiermuth is the sort of game Pat Freiermuth not only steps up, but he's a mismatch for the defense. This hurts not having Pat Freiermuth this week, and they can't seem to figure out how to work Darnell Washington into the freaking.
Well, they've just been running the ball mostly, and they ran the ball I think 35 times last week. I'm pretty sure. So they're doing more running, and if the Jags stop the run, then the Steelers have to go back to that 5
wide. Back to Rodney Williams.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I know what you mean because I like seeing the play action pass to Connor Hayward and stuff like that. But I think if they get the run stuff, it's gonna stop a few things. And I do want to see that. I really want to see Pickens back up his talk because he did call it a hope defense. He said it's going to be a hopeful defense or whatever he said.
But that's why I actually think that they'll scheme for him, and then I think DJ and Robinson will get a bunch of ball. Right?
He's been. Robinson's been pretty. People are starting to lose. I know Steel Nation gets up so easily, but they're losing a bit of love for.
We traded a 7th rounder for him. Just let it play out. Let it go. But Austin. The two things for me is the run game. The run game gets going early against that defensive line. That's where I actually think they could be a hope defense. And I also think Calvin Austin. I'm not sure that this defense is built to go up against a Swiss Army knife like Calvin Austin.
They didn't really use him last week, though. He played like
I know. He had no targets, no receptions.
Yeah. But the same thing is, though, I think we talked about this in the offseason. There's so many people to get the ball. Najee Warren getting the ball. Hayward wants the ball. If you do want to feed in Williams or Washington, they can get the ball. Then you have 1, 2, 3, 4 receivers who can get it too. Plus, if Freiermuth's healthy as well. So it's how many times can you get the ball to someone? And you want to see Pickens get 10 targets or 9 targets in the game.
Yeah.
So,
100%.
Who do you feed it to? And if last week it worked by getting everyone, we saw Kenny Pickett get a TD. I know you were saying this last year when everyone's like, oh, he's only got 3 and 4, but he had 3 TDs at the time, rushing.
But he's had, when I did the show this week, comparing with the off the Bradshaw, he has 4 TDs at this point in his career.
That's pretty good.
For the first 2 seasons, and I compare him to Big Ben, Peyton Manning, Eli Manning, and I compared him to, who else was the other one, Herbert, and I compared him to, anyway, a couple plays. He had the most touchdowns rushing. And so when you add that to his total, he's actually doing pretty well.
Yeah. Well, there's only, I think he's now is it 5 and 4 this year plus 5 and 5? Yeah. I believe it as well, but I think Steel Nation sometimes just wants to see 3 TDs, 300 yards, get the job done. But he does have 4 TDs in his career, and Kenny Pickett is becoming the guy, I think, slowly. And it's not the best just yet, but it's, what, man? It's so fun to watch. Honest to goodness, you see that pass to DJ, the one you talked about? Fantastic, You even see him do a handoff to Najee, and it's fantastic. I think it's as good to watch him develop as a quarterback. I think it's fun.
That's the thing. We were very young when Big Ben came into the Steelers. So for us, we were kids.
I was 11 years old.
But we talked about this when they drafted Kenny Pickett. It's we get to enjoy the development of him. So in 5 or 6 years' time, when the Steelers are in the AFC Championship game for the 2nd or 3rd time, and you're like, yeah, I remember when Kenny Pickett was developing. I remember.
It'll be this year. Who knows? There are blokes, there are young girls and guys who are 12, 10 years old and buying the jersey and getting behind Kenny Pickett. Like, this is a fun time to get behind a quarterback when he is struggling and still getting wins. And if he goes out the next week, gets 2 TDs, and I think last week was the best stats I've seen in a while. 17, 25, 220. You gave him enough time to throw it, and you stuck with the run. That is success. But Steeler Nation wants one more TD so they can win 31.
But the thing I keep saying is, do you want more than 2 or 3 TDs and the team to either lose or him to throw interceptions? I'd rather him not do that.
And they're not turning the ball over as well. And there was times where they blitzed off to the sack, and they didn't cover the whole group didn't cover him. Like, it wasn't like it was a blown coverage. It wasn't like they beat the man. They sent the blitz and couldn't pick it up and got the sack. So yeah, they're not turning the ball over just now too either. They almost did. Najee almost turned it over, but.
And the other thing, I think, look, if we're seeing the same stuff in week 12 or 13, I am going to be a little bit concerned. But at week 7 and 8, I'm just like,
it's still picking up.
Let's dial it back a notch, you know?
And they're starting to verse a bit, not easier teams, but they're not versing 49ers rush defense or the Browns rush defense or the Ravens defense, right? And they beat them too. They keep doing power rankings with the Browns and Ravens above us, and I'm like, we've already beat them. So what are you meant to do?
To sort of start wrapping up our conversation, I guess you're always super positive, particularly at the moment, about this team and the prospects, and we've talked in a really positive nature. And I'm not saying like all of the truth, but is there an area, if the Steelers can fix one area that they need to improve upon, what do you want to see better in this week's game?
3rd and 15 on defense.
Oh my God, thank you. What is
I've never seen it, man. I've never seen it ever. Like, it's been happening for like 4 years now. They do really good on first down, second and 12, and then they get the sack. It's like 3rd and 16. They play really soft coverage. They allow the check down, or they allow like a 14-yard pass, and they go 16, 17 yards first down. It's like, and then they get the splash turnover. But you do so well for the first 2 downs, and then the 3rd and 15. The longer it is, the more likely they're to get it. It's honest to goodness. I don't know. I can't go on the stats. I haven't seen the stats about it, but I feel like it always happens.
Yeah,
always happens.
Mine, I completely agree with you. So, and I was going to say 3rd and longs. So you said it, so I don't have to. My one's going to be discipline. Oh, they can't keep committing that many penalties. Last week
was the highest. I think that they did.
And I'm putting aside the professional foul type stuff and the pick-ins and the DJ stuff like that and the shushing and all that. I mean, like the line, you know, I think it was only the Rams got done for false start, but the encroachment, there was at least one encroachment. Like, discipline's got to be better all the way around, because that's going to cost you a game at some point. They're very lucky that didn't cost them the game.
That was their highest, I think, penalty wise. I think they've got 30 this year, and I feel like there was like 9.
Aren't they like top 5 in penalties though this year?
And I think they're one of the lowest, because they got 30 for 260.
I think they're lowest for yards, but I think they're high in the actual numbers of penalties.
Well, they got what's that? 30 divided by 6, so 5 a game.
That's a fair amount, man. Is
that right? Not compared to our opponents. Our opponents got 41. I think they're one of. No, I mean like opponents in general.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty high.
You reckon? Hey, let me look it up.
It's pretty high. I don't know. I'm going to pull that up. I reckon that's pretty high.
Where do you get your stats from? I'm
going to go Pro Football Reference for this.
I'm going to go teamrankings.com, and I'll go penalties per game.
Teamrankings.com.
Yeah, do you use it? Not too bad, man. It's middle of the pack. It's all right.
It's all right. It's just funny. It just is like...
You don't use that. You don't use that site. It's a great site. 6.7 I got per game, 21st in the league.
Oh yeah, fair enough. But they were high. Was it last year or the year before they were high? Anyway, I don't want to see that many penalties because I think they'll lose the game.
Last year though was 6.4 in average.
Yeah. Do you have a bold prediction before we close out the show?
Bold prediction. You know what? I think Levi Wall's going to bounce back. I think if they play JPJ more, I think they'll give him more. Won't be as crazy out there, and I think he'll get a pick. But you want me to be really bold?
Yeah, go bold.
He gets
squared.
He gets 2 picks. I think he bounces back because I think
like
Steel Nation. I just find it funny how like Steel Nation, when they start playing poor, it's not like, oh, this guy can do better. Let's figure out why he's playing bad. It's like, nah, trade him away. It's like they want to trade away Dan Moore, and then they want to trade away this guy, trade that guy. It's like, well, let them play out. Like, just let them play.
I've got Holcomb, 2 forced fumbles. One will be a hit, and one will be like a strip tackle.
So we've got 4 takeaways.
4 takeaways.
No,
and I've got Jalen Warren, 60 plus receiving yards.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing that. Get him involved.
And a long of over 30.
Yep. And they're also working him into a role too where you have Jalen Warren and Connor Hayward and Nigel on the field at the same time.
I love it.
So you don't know where they're going to go. If they're going to go...
Call it the tree, the Mighty Mark, the Mighty Men.
But you don't know if they're going to go jet sweep, or you don't know if they're going to go follow Najee or follow the back. So, but yeah, I see some good football this week because they're coming. If they turn up like they turned up, I think versus the Rams, it was really physical and they played a good football game. Then they're ready to go. I think it's whoever turns up first. I think then set the tone. And if we see JPJ out there more than usual, I think Levi will start to play better. And this defense, anything can happen with TJ Watt, man. I'm at the point I'm just like, this is a special season for him. It really is. Like, he's got 8 sacks, he's got 3 fumbles, 2 fumble recoveries, a TD, almost a pick to the house. He's just getting started. And it's still a long way to go.
I love it.
Like,
I love it. I can't finish the show better than that. So
yeah.
as always,
Go Steelers. Here we go. Go Steelers. Here we go. Let's go.